Welcome to the 9th annual Geoffrey Bawa Memorial Lecture. Today, the 27th of May 2011, also happens to be one of those rare occasions on which the actual anniversary falls on the day of the lecture. So it's 9 years ago that Geoffrey Bawa passed away, and for the last 9 years, in fact, including the year that he passed away, beginning with Professor Bandaranayake giving a lecture on his birthday, we've had this lecture by a whole series of eminent architects, and about 6 years ago we changed it to the anniversary of his death, and it's generally the first Friday, or the Friday closest to Geoffrey's death anniversary. It just happens that this year it happens to be on the day. Culture, and this year it's my great pleasure to introduce to you the founding partners of the Singapore-based architectural practice Woha, founded by Wong Mun Som and Richard Hassel in 1984. Wong Mun Som graduated with honours from the National University of Singapore in 1989. He is a member of the Singapore Institute of Architects and served on the board of Singapore's Urban Redevelopment Authority from 1999 to 2005. He has also served on the International Design Consultancy for the waterfront at the downtown in Marina Bay in Singapore, and as a member of the URA Design Advisory Panels was for such projects as the Singapore Sports Hub, the Marina Barrage, and the Integrated Resort at Marina Bay. Richard Hassel graduated from the University of Western Australia in 1989. He was awarded a Master of Architecture degree from the RMIT University in Melbourne in 2002. He's currently a board member of both the Design Singapore Council and the Building and Construction Authority of Singapore. He has also served on committees of the URA, SIA, and Board of Architects in Singapore. He has lectured at universities in Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong, the USA, and the United Kingdom, and was an adjunct professor at the University of Technology, Sydney from 2006 to 2009. So ladies and gentlemen, I welcome Wong Mun Som and Richard Hassel to do their duet, I suppose, of presenting their work to you this evening.
Thank you very much, Hannah. We're very appreciative of the Geoffrey Bawa Trust for bringing us here, and not just for this evening, but we've had a wonderful tour the last 2 days of many of Geoffrey's buildings, which we've only really known before from the books. So it's been really wonderful to see how all the photographs join up into a wonderful architectural journey.
Richard and I, we both met in Carey Hill Architects in 1989 when we graduated, and we worked there for 5 years. And just to let you into a secret, the book that we refer to most and use and always flip through a lot is the Mima book on Geoffrey Bawa. And I think that in some ways does sort of mold the way we look at things and do our architecture. So we started our practice about 16 years ago, mainly doing very small projects. We will not show that, but we will show some of more recent works and a few that are, in our opinion, quite critical, quite crucial to the way we have evolved today.
This is the other station that we won in the same competition. A very different station. It's in an area a little bit out of town at the National Stadium, and it has a lot of big sort of event buildings around it, and we felt it had very little sense of place. So in terms of our competition, we developed a plaza at each end that feeds into a ground level concourse, because we felt it was a very dangerous thing to bring big crowds of people after a football match when they may be a little bit excited and squash them into underground corridors. So it has a ground level platform, which is very unusual in an underground station in Singapore. At ground level, it's like a sort of big armature that organises the area, and we likened it to a sort of vacuum cleaner that just sucks up the crowd and squirts them out underground. Wanted a very direct organisation because of this area doesn't really have a fine urban texture. So this strong gesture with the openings at each end gives a kind of line that organises all the other buildings around it. The curve also picks up the curve of the National Stadium. And then in section, the same idea of sort of compressing, bringing people in and compressing them. The station widens out underground, so the crowd ends up in a more spacious place when they reach the platform.
And here we had one curved wall and one straight wall, and there are absolutely no struts in between. As opposed to the previous one, because it was underground, it was impossible for us not to have any struts. For this one, we fought very, very hard with the client to avoid having a strut, to sort of between the tightest point of the two curve and the straight wall. So the other thing that we also were looking at in our work is we draw a lot of analogy with natural forms and like rocks and caves. In this case, because it was a football stadium, people coming off the games would be really hot and sweaty, and we wanted them to go into the station and then see a very blue, sort of a very wet and cool bottom, and so somewhat like the water in a creek.
For the cladding, because it was such a huge surface, it's about 200 metres long and 18 metres deep, we wanted something that could do a whole lot of duties, so we developed a metal louver that could give this continuous surface but could give us different degrees of transparency and perforation. Also could be opened up to allow for acoustic absorber behind it. So we developed this idea actually from a dong san, the Vietnamese rain drums, which have this very beautiful incised bronze edge to them. We thought that would be something nice to do in an industrial product. So this is an aluminium extrusion, which is can be mounted back to front, upside down, and the right way round, so 4 orientations. And these striations in it are just slightly different on each orientation. Some of them link up, some of them don't. And these were simulations we did, and then the final product, which works very nicely under this vertical light. So these protrusions are only about 2 or 3 millimeters, but they catch the light quite beautifully.
And one of the things that's quite nice about a tropical high-rise buildings is that you can actually enjoy spaces within the building which you normally can't. It's like in a Geoffrey Bawa courtyard house, you actually get to see the space, and actually you get the same feeling in a high-rise building. That's what you sort of can enjoy. Was that your vertical surfaces are the ones that you need to tackle to prevent the building from heating up. So we introduce sunshades all around the building, and also using deep balconies as sun shading devices. So the entire vertical surface of the tower block is actually shaded. So this is the section across the building where we were introducing the sky gardens on every 4 floors. And the sky garden, one of the pocket gardens in the sky, that has got a small little bench on it, and a frangipani tree and a water feature, and it's very popular with the users here, because most of them are actually very young expat families, and also professional couples, and for very small families as well. So the family sort of bring the kids out here to feed them. It's sort of like this is the garden area of the apartments. And also for the expats, they find this very convenient for smoking.
It's not just expats who smoke.
Apparently, it's the case. But one of the nicest compliments we got from one of the homeowners was a complaint that we got of someone on the 24th floor where the children were being stung by bees. So it's one of the things that we felt we were doing right, is that you can actually create greenery up in the higher part of the tower block.
This is the sun shading. It's just an aluminium expanded mesh. What's interesting about the expanded mesh is it has a sort of direction to it. So from one angle, it appears quite transparent. From the opposite angle, it's quite solid. So when you're in the apartment looking down, you can look through it. But from the angle of the sun coming onto the building, it is fairly solid. And another Bawa connection, I think, is that people kept ringing us up after this building. They say, "What cladding did you use?" And we said, "Actually, it's paint." And another Bawa trick, I think. And what we did here was the sun shading is on these little outriggers, and we knew in Singapore this would get very streaky because we have a lot of rain and dust. And so basically this paint job was to pre-streak the facade so it wouldn't show the dirt so obviously. This is just playing with light, so every tree has an uplight on it which projects the shadow of the tree onto the soffit above. Next one is in a way completely different and maybe it has most connections to Bawa, even the way we drew our water. So this is in Bali on the southern peninsula called the Bukit, which is very dry. It's called Indonesian savanna landscape. So it's nothing like the Bali of Ubud or even Sanur or Kuta. It's full of thorny trees. It has a very pronounced dry season and just used for cattle farming. So this resort, we actually wanted something that had some architectural power, even though it's just a 50-room boutique hotel. And we felt that there was something in the Majapahit Empire architecture, which Balinese architecture is derived from. And so we made a sort of palace complex on the top of this cliff. It was quite a challenging site because although the cliff is dramatic, past the cliff it's actually a very gentle gradient. And it was quite a challenge to get views for everybody of the sea. So we thought, actually, this palace complex allows us to inhabit quite a large flat area with a kind of courtyard architecture that's only 1 story high. So the public areas uses this colonnade device to bring you around. So the device starts as a pair of open arms that welcome you to a courtyard. From the courtyard, we then set up a series of views across water to the sea. So something that the Triton Resort, I think, was one of our long-term inspirations for setting up this series of water elements that you could cross. So here's the open arms as you approach the entrance, and then when you get to the lobby, you get a polished floor followed. It's a bit bleached out here, but there's a water garden and then the sea.
So this is actually the water garden line here, and then the sea view.
As you move forward, so it's a bit easier to see here, step into the lobby lounge pavilion, and then yes, the water, actually then the swimming pool, then the sea behind. And this colonnade element basically keeps opening out, framing the views. One thing we felt though was that this colonnade is a very formal device and we didn't want the place to feel very stiff, so we then inhabited it with these lightweight pavilions with a sort of metaphor that there was this palace that had fallen into disrepair, and then the villagers had moved in and kind of built shanties into the palatial structure. Some other things that we were inspired by, we felt Balinese architecture with all its Majapahit step brickwork had a lot in common with Kalo Scarpa, so we liked drawing these connections between things. So this one we said, and I think the other thing was Balinese pavilions are sort of these pure Miesian pavilions. So we said, okay, maybe this is where if Mies van der Rohe and Kalo Scarpa fell in love and moved to Bali, they might build this as their palatial residence. The pavilions are all made out of recycled wood. We were very keen to avoid using rainforest timber. And luckily the owner got excited about it too and managed to find a source of recycled telephone poles and railway sleepers out of this fantastic ironwood called ulan. So the pavilion design actually allows us to accommodate all the uneven lengths of wood we got from using recycled wood. And the pavilion element, these are steel rods that support the whole thing, and we use these little cast bronze spaces which were cast in Central Java.
So thank you very much everybody, and most of all for all of you for attending this 9th Geoffrey Bawa Memorial Lecture. Thank you very much and good evening.